Good morning, dear students of class 8. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today we are going to further continue with the lesson from It So Happened Supplementary Reader, Lesson 7, The Open Window. So let us first quickly revise what we did in our previous class. Frampton Nuttall is suffering from bad nervous breakdown. He has been advised by the doctor to visit village side, to calm his nerves. So he decides, for the sake of his health, to visit countryside. Now, as he is a very reserved kind of person, his sister gives him some letters of introduction of the families she knew in that small village, as she had been there in this village 4 years ago. Now Mr. Nuttall visits one such house with his sister's letter of introduction. The lady whose house he visits is Mrs. Sappleton. When he visits the house, Mrs. Sappleton is doing some work upstairs. So Mr. Nuttall is received by Mrs. Sappleton's niece. This girl is a girl of 15 and very confident. She tells him that as her aunt is busy upstairs, in the meantime, he can talk to her. Now, we find that during the conversation, when the conversation begins, the niece asks him that does he know many people in the village? And Frampton says that he does not know anyone. Actually, his sister had been staying in this village 4 years ago, and she has given him some letters of introduction of the families whom she knew. That showed that he was not very positive, because the last statement he said in a tone of distinct regret. Then the girl said that then you do not know anything about my aunt? Mr. Frampton says only her name and address. The girl says that this tragedy happened to her, say, 3 years ago. Now, Mr. Frampton is puzzled because he thinks in this restful country, tragedies would not have happened. He never thought about it. The girl begins by saying that you must be wondering why this large French window is opened in an October afternoon. Frampton agrees. He says, yes, it is quite warm. Now the girl begins by saying that out through this window 3 years ago, Mrs. Sappleton's husband and her 2 young brothers, they went for shooting, and they were caught in the bog, and they never returned. Even their bodies could not be recovered. Now, while she was saying this, her voice started faltering. She no more appeared confident. And she further said that her aunt still waits. She feels that through this open window, they might come back. They would be returning anytime. So every evening, till it is quite dusk, this window remains open. Poor aunt is waiting for her husband and her two brothers to return, who had left for hunting along with the little brown spaniel. And all were lost. But aunt believes that they would be coming back. Now, when she said this, she added that sometimes even she has this scary feeling that they would be coming through the window that is open, through this large French open window. Now, it was a relief for Mr. Frampton when Mrs. Appleton came into the room. And when she entered the room, she was full of apologies. And she said, "It seems that Vera was amusing you." Vera is the name of her niece. And Frampton said that she was very interesting. Then aunt referred to the window and she said that, "I hope you don't mind the open window, because through this window my husband and brothers will be coming back after hunting. And they have been out for snipe, for hunting in the marshes today, and they are going to come back with all mess. They are going to dirty the poor carpets." And she kept on talking about shooting, the scarcity of birds, the prospects for duck in the winter, and so on. Now Frampton was terribly scared. He wanted to turn the change the topic of conversation, because now this conversation appeared very ghastly for him. And his hostess was paying attention to the open window only. He felt that it was unfortunate that he should have visited when the family was going through this tragic anniversary. Now we further continue the lesson. The doctors agree in ordering me complete rest and absence of mental excitement and avoidance of anything in the nature of violent physical exercise. Now Frampton is talking about his health condition. He's been advised by the doctors for complete rest and no mental excitement and avoidance of physical exercise, announced Frampton, who labored under the tolerably widespread delusion that total strangers and chance acquaintances are hungry for the least details of one's ailments and infirmities, their cause and cure. He was well aware of the fact that strangers and chanced acquaintances means whom you know. They are not keen to know about the other person's problems, their ailments, their sickness, and their cause and cure. On the matter of diet, they are not much in agreement. But he kept on speaking. "No," said Mrs. Appleton, in a voice which only replaced a yawn at the last moment. Means she was not interested in what Mr. Frampton was speaking, because her body language showed she was yawning. Either she was tired or she was not interested in talk of Mr. Frampton Nuttall. Then she suddenly brightened into alert attention, but not to what Frampton was saying. But suddenly her facial expressions changed, and she was alerted, and her face brightened up, but not to what Mr. Frampton was saying. "Here they are at last," she cried, "just in time for tea, and don't they look as if they were muddy up to the eyes?" She cried. She said that yes, they have come back, and they are very much in time for tea. And as I said, they are looking very muddy. Up to the eyes, they are covered with mud. So she was referring to her husband and two brothers, whom she was waiting to return back from hunting. But Vera had told Frampton Nuttall that her husband and her two brothers, they were caught in the bog and their bodies were not recovered. And Mrs. Appleton always used to keep the French window open, wishing that they would be returning any time. We'll stop here and we'll continue further in the next class as to what happened, how Frampton Nuttall reacted. Was it real or was it an imagination? We'll stop here and we'll continue the remaining part in the next class. You can see the expressions. The aunt in the picture. The aunt is very happy seeing them returning back. And Frampton is puzzled, thinking that they are ghosts. And you see the expressions of Vera. She seems to be enjoying. So that gives a clue that it was a trick played by Vera on Frampton Nuttall. We'll stop here and we'll continue with the remaining in the next class. Thank you. Take care. Read the lesson. Write down the important points in your notebook.